YouTubers, space detectives and paranoia police. Today we are looking at some more rover images from Mars, and particularly we are looking at this image from Sol 44 and also another one from Sol 44, which is this one here. So we've got two from Sol 44. There are lots of things in this area and a lot of them are too small to actually work out what they are, but there are a few things here you can actually see quite clearly. What I did is I put together a Gigapan of the area, which I've got here. I'll show you that in a second, but it's really big and it won't load up very easily. So what I'll do is I'll show you the things I found first, and then we'll go through the Gigapan and have a look round. But a lot of it's just kind of little rocks and rubble laying all over the place, as you'd expect in Gale Crater. But there are some interesting things, and as usual, there's always a surprise. I'm not surprised by a lot of the things I've found, but this one was a nice surprise actually, because it shows evidence of architecture as well as other things. So I'll show you the pictures first, and then we'll backtrack a little bit and I'll show you where to look and what images to look at. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look at this. Now this, I'm not really sure what to call it. It's basically a carved head with a roof on it, which is very odd indeed. It is a little bit perplexing, and I've been trying to figure out what it is, and I think what it actually represents is some kind of gargoyle. Now, as my subscribers out there, a lot of you would have seen some of my recent videos. I've found lots of gargoyles in this area. In fact, I've been finding them for years and years now, and I've always said that this must mean that there were religious or similar buildings in the area where these things were carved and attached to as part of a building. Now, the other option is possibly that these are grave markers or gravestones that had a depiction of the person, perhaps, and a sort of grave-shaped tombstone with a head carved in. Who knows? It could be either. But this, to me, looks like architecture. You can see the chin here. There's a neck. Obviously, we've got this roof-like structure that comes around like that, and comes back over here. It comes in a bit there. Excuse my slightly crude drawing here. And you can see the face on it, even in the raw image here. Let me zoom into the raw clip there. You can actually see two eyes and a nose and a mouth there. A bit vague, but these images are filtered. And they've got this orange puke filter over them, so that makes everything look kind of the same. You can see the other colours coming through here, even in this image. You can see the eyes. See those eyes there? One there and one there. Pretty clear. In fact, that's what's jumped out at me straight away when I was looking through the area. I thought, wow, what's that? So this looks like a piece of architecture that was attached either to the corner of a building or on the front of a building, like perhaps a religious building, like an abbey or a church or something like that. Who knows? But it's just as likely to be part of a grave or tombstone, and this may go right down into the ground below like this and have more structure to it coming down. Who knows? There's no way to say looking at this image just like this, but you can see, if you look real carefully, in fact what I'll do, I'll just darken that up a bit. You can see a line coming down here. Now, sand is not a solid. As I've said before, sand is semi-transparent. In fact, this is why we make glass from it, because it's basically silica. And silica is transparent. When you melt it down, it becomes even more transparent and quite clear, very clear in fact, depending on what type of sand you use, of course. Let's go really dark here and see if we can pull out something below. Yeah, there's kind of a line coming down here. I don't know if you can make that out, but that may just be a coincidence. But there seems to be some distortion in the ground below, just here, which means this may actually carry on down below the ground, and there's a thin layer of sand over the top, which is showing through. The object is showing through partly. So I suspect that this is much larger than we're actually seeing. We're only seeing the very top of it. And what it reminded me of is some of the gargoyles you see when you go to places like Paris, you go to or anywhere really, Prague, or I've been all over the world, and I've seen many examples of gargoyles on many buildings in many countries, and they never cease to amaze me how grotesque and funny some of them are. Some of them look really quite scary, and this doesn't look particularly scary. The mouth, there is mouth detail here. You can see mouth detail just here, and nose detail here, and eye detail with black pupils, irises I should say, here and here. Now I do think a lot of these carvings that we see on the surface of Mars are actually painted. I don't think they're just made completely out of one colour of clay, or they're using different types of clay or stone together, because basically we have here a very blue looking sort of roof part to this here, very blue looking, right? And it goes a very sort of yellowy, almost whitey yellowy colour here at the bottom here. Now that may be a rock that's just happens to be there in front of it, like this one down here. It doesn't quite match up, the luminosity is different, so that may be not joined to it. But basically we have a very blue roof part, and then we have a very brown head, which kind of comes to here like that, okay? And I think this thing here is behind it. There's another rock just behind it, unfortunately. So you can actually see the different colours, so that's interesting. Now that says to me this may be made of actual clay rather than carved. This may be moulded in clay by hand and finished once. Like I've said before, the soil in Gale Crater especially, but on Mars, a lot of it is very high in sulfur and other interesting elements which make it very sticky and would actually be very easy to make things like this even without the presence of water. You can just put it under pressure and mould it together, and it would stick together like glue. So I wonder whether these are two different types of clay here that have been used, because this part here, the actual head with the chin there and the neck, this part here is very brown with just a hint of blue, and this is very light blue. So this may represent two different types of local clay that have been used together, or this could be render, like plaster. That may also be a possibility. So if this was joined to a building or something like that, it could have been rendered, and this could have been rendered onto it, like you would get on a house or on a building. Why not? You can actually see a join there as well. You can see a join there. So this isn't a rock. This is a piece of architecture or a carved gargoyle of some sort. I'll just show you a couple of examples of gargoyles. I'll be looking them up. I can't find one to match, of course, because we're looking at Mars, not Earth. But a lot of these things are built into structures or just under structures. And there are probably millions of examples of these all over the world on various buildings. I've seen many of them. And this one, incidentally, the one of the spaceman that people say, oh, that's proof of ancient aliens. It's not. This is a recent gargoyle carved on an older building. Often, gargoyles get added over time. And that doesn't mean that there were spacemen around when this was carved hundreds of years ago. It was carved recently. So that is one of the sort of urban myths you see on social media, the spaceman gargoyle here. So often what will happen is these will get damaged and then get recarved over time as well. But often they're on the corner and they have a sort of roof-like structure above them. A lot of them here are on top of structures, but often they're in a corner and you'll see a part of a roof or plastered or rendered stonework just above them or next to them, like we have here, where this one's kind of built into a corner. So it's a corner piece. Sorry, I accidentally clicked on that then. Let's go back. So it's a corner piece, much like we have here in some of these examples. But of course these are on Earth, and they're not the same because they're representing mythical creatures and like lions and stuff like that, and mythical beasts and devils and all sorts of things like dragons and stuff. And of course in the Far East you get more sort of exotic kind of creatures as well, you know, on buildings and stuff like that. So there we are. So that was that one. Interesting one, that. I was really quite pleased with it, and it's kind of just sat there in the sand. And you can see the detail, even in the raw image there. If you look at up in the corner, you can see the eyes, you can see the mouth and the nose. Yes, it's not perfect, but it wouldn't be. It's probably quite eroded. Parts of it may have broken off as well. The nose looks a bit damaged. You've got this rather interesting monobrow at the top, which I thought was interesting. The mouth detail's a bit vague. It looks a bit damaged around the chin area here. But this, of course, may have fallen off a building. If the building was destroyed, then the chin, or parts of this may have cracked. But maybe not. Maybe this is actually where it was built, and maybe it hasn't moved at all, and it's just the whole area is filled with sand and rubble. Obviously, sand and dust would have landed in Gale Crater over many thousands of years. Dust storms would have blown over, and a lot of sand would have been deposited in the area. So it seems obvious to me that there would be hundreds and hundreds of similar things in the sand below and strewn about. As I've shown before, we're only seeing the very top tip of the iceberg here. And I would imagine it's much like I said in a previous video, it's like the terracotta army in China. I would imagine there'd be thousands and thousands of little statuettes and figurines all buried here, because this was a burial area. And we're just seeing the very top part. And this is all kind of sand that's buried it all. And luckily for us, the wind has blown some of the sand away. We can see it. So there was that. Quickly show you this one. Now, I don't know what this is. What I do know is it looks like an animal, a fossilized creature. But I don't know what sort of animal it represents. You can actually see in the raw image here, the raw image is a bit pasty, but you can see a head here with a rather strange snout, and you can see an arm here. And there's the back, and the head sort of sticks up like that. So what sort of creature is this? I don't know, but you can clearly see when you enhance it, I've colour corrected it and whacked the contrast up. You can clearly see an arm here. You can even see the shoulder joint there. Coming round. There's the arm coming round there. It's the elbow joint. And what seems to be a hand or paw here. You can't really see much finger detail, but there's a thumb or finger sticking out there. You can actually see the elbow joint here. Okay, let's get rid of that so you can see it. What I'll do, actually, I'll darken that up so that it really pops a bit. There we are. Now you can see it. You'll see that arm coming round. And that's about it. I mean, I don't know what sort of creature this is. Perhaps some of you out there might be able to help me with this one. This is yet another example of an unknown species on Mars that's fossilized, like many of them are. So there's something on the back of this thing, but it does look like a dead creature. I don't know what this represents on the back. I can see some sort of pattern there, but who knows? A lot of these things are not just one object that are fossilized together. Often you get 2 or 3 objects that are kind of stuck together. There's also something in the sand here, which is like a little wheel-shaped thing. I don't know if you can make that out, and there's something there, but it's really vague. This is right out in the open, and it's very bright. There's hardly any shadow in the image. I think it's taken around midday-ish. So we've got no shadows to really give it any form. As you can see here, there's a very small shadow under this kind of pebble here. Just comes to there. So this is probably taken around midday sort of time. And that's the worst time, really, to see a lot of things. It's better a little bit later in the afternoon when the shadows are a little bit longer, and then you get slightly better outlines and shapes showing, because it actually gives you more contrast in the image. So, but you can see that there were 2 eyes on this thing, just one here and one here. And we got this very odd looking snout area. Now, this may also be something in front of it, like that. This is really, really odd. I can't really work out what's going on, but to me, that's what it looks like. This looks like a head coming right up here, slightly cone-headed sort of shape, mole-like creature, whatever it is. back sort of comes like that. There's the belly. You can see what look a bit like rib details here, just there. And there's some sort of detail here, but I can't quite work out what it is. Muscle detail or something. But obviously the arm is the thing that clinched it for me, coming round like that. And you can see that there's what look like two wrist bones here, like you would expect to see in many creatures, including us. And there's a finger, but it's vague. It's really vague, and you've really got to push the contrast to see it. But you can see that in the raw image here. You can see that coming around like that. You've just got to squint a bit to see it properly. And this actually may come up a bit higher, the head here at the back. I may have got that slightly wrong just here, because it's quite vague, it's hard to tell. It blends with the background. This is why they use the orange filter, of course. Their excuse is it gives them infrared information. This is NASA, I should say. And also helps them see in shadows, but actually what it does, it actually just kills a lot of the details in these images. But what I will do, I'll go through the whole set of images again and see if I can find anything else. There are some weird things, but most of them are very, very pale and pasty looking. You've really got to crank loads of contrast in there to see them, as is often the case with these, unfortunately. So there we have it. We have a strange creature. Don't know what to call this. Comment below if you've got any ideas what that could be. It looks a bit like a mole to me, or some kind of weird thing. Who knows? It could be almost anything. And then we have the architectural piece of gargoyle carving or sculpture here, which was probably attached either to a grave or a religious building. That may have just been right here. Who knows? There are lots of buttes around here that look like ruined, very, very ancient ruined buildings. But this is out in the open. I'll quickly show you the Gigapan just to give you a quick idea of what it looks like. But this may take a second to load up. Now what I did, I made smaller ones of the area because a lot of them were so big, these Gigapans I did, that they wouldn't load up. And here's that strange creature thing, just here. If it'll let me zoom in, you can see the arm sticking down there, just there. There was that one. But most of this stuff is really pale. It's right out in the open, and it's sort of midday sort of photograph. And you can't really see anything until you add contrast to the image. So that's what you have to do. So I really recommend this set, that you download these, or at least download some of them. You can flick through them on the website quite easily, and just flick through them and enlarge them. You don't have to download them all. You can just look through them like this, and then download the ones you like. But there's that one there. You can see the Rover tracks here, so we've actually got measurement here. So these are 20 inches across. So that gives us a direct ruler guide. This here, that's 20 inches. So everything can be compared to that in size. So the gargoyle thing is over here somewhere, and I probably won't be able to find it now. There it is, just here, near the bottom. So that isn't very big. If that's 20 inches, this thing's, like I said, about 5 inches. So I was right, approximately 5 inches, both high and across. I'd say about 5 or 6, no more than that. So there we are. That gives you a rough idea of scale. And that other thing, the creature thing, is a bit bigger and is right over here. So there's the actual measurement of it, but we're only seeing part of it. This is only half the body. We're not seeing the rest of the body. I would say that's a bit bigger. That's more like about 10 inches. So that's actually not tiny. And it's a bit further away, but it's actually about half the width of that track. So this is not that small. So this thing is about 10 inches wide or long, where I've drawn that line there. That's about 10 inches. So that's cool. So it's actually nice to have a ruler guide for once. So thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you soon.